Hey everyone, I'm Amber and welcome to my channel, Amber Wallace Reads. So today I want to talk about something that I haven't necessarily seen done before, and that is book rating systems. So when you finish a book, how many stars do you give it for a rating and why? So the most common book rating scale that I've seen is the 5-star system, where you finish a book and you give the book either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 stars. This is very common, but this is actually one of the rating systems that I have the hardest time understanding. So my first question with this is, what is the baseline? You read a book, you thought it was written fairly well, you enjoyed it, it was a decent book. It didn't stand out to you, but it wasn't bad. Are you giving that book a 3? Are you giving it a 4? Are you giving it a 2? When I go on Goodreads, if I see a book that has less than a 3.5, I don't want to read it. So for me, I enjoy the average books I read. But if I'm giving those a 3, I'm basically not recommending those books to myself when I really did enjoy reading them. So should I be giving average books a 4 or should I be giving them a 3? I don't really have a solid baseline for that. And I feel with the 5-star system, 4 is a pretty high score. So this brings me into sort of my next point between 4 and 5. My all-time favorite books are 5s. Those are the books that I will remember for the rest of my life, that I would reread in a heartbeat. For me, those are like The Book Thief and Pride and Prejudice and The Alchemist and some of my all-time favorite books. I have a real problem giving 5 stars to books that changed my life and then 5 stars to books that were just really enjoyable reads. In my mind, those aren't on the same level. So if I'm going by that, then the books that didn't completely change my life should only be getting 4 stars. But that pushes back to the 3 versus 4-star average, because if I'm using a 4-star average for books that I just enjoyed, then now the books that I enjoy and the books that I really enjoyed are on the same level. You see what my problem is here? The ratings are too close together. And then I really never get into the 1s and 2s range. I mean, if I read a really bad book and I finish it, I'll give it a 2. And the only way I would give a book a 1 is if I absolutely could not finish that book. So my main problem with this 5-star rating system is that you only have 5 stars as a range. So your worst book that you've ever read to your best book you've ever read, you only have 5 options to explain those books and all of the ones you've read in between. So it's really not the best system. Another thing that I have a problem with the current 5-star rating system is this system really doesn't let you know what you're rating. And on Goodreads, it's sort of like your emotional connection to it, whether you disliked it, liked it, loved it, etc. But for me, a book is more than just, did I enjoy reading it? I can read a book that I hated reading because I hated the characters, but the writing was so good and the story was so compelling, I read it anyway. One example of that book for me is The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. I hated The Poisonwood Bible because of the characters. They grated on me, especially the dad in the story. I just remember reading it, especially from his point of view, just how stubborn and unyielding he was, and how he was not willing to accommodate the culture that was surrounding him, and just seeing his lack of adaptability in a different culture was so frustrating and painful for me to read. But the writing was incredible. The plot was incredible. It made you question really important things, and I value the book as a whole, and overall, the experience of reading it was amazing. I have 2 very polar opposite feelings about that book, and meeting in the middle with a 3 just doesn't seem like a good compromise. It makes it seem like the book was average when it was honestly anything but that. It made me feel so passionately in both directions towards it, and a 3 just doesn't seem fair. What I would like is to break it down by plot, by quality of writing, by enjoyment reading, by how much you like the characters. I don't know the specific categories, but if we had more categories that we were judging books on instead of just overall, then I think that would help with books where I feel really strongly about it one way, but for a completely different reason, I feel the opposite. Another problem I really have setting a baseline on this 5-star scale is at the time I read a book and it's average for me, so I give it a 3. Well, I go away for 2 years. I read a ton more books, and my definition of average changes. So 2 years later, I read a book that is now average, and I'm giving it 3 stars because it's currently my definition of average. But now, the 3 star book from 2 years into the future and the 3 star book from now are rated the same, when really the one I read 2 years in the future is so much better than the one I read 2 years ago. So, do we go back and update scores? So, if I'm thinking of a book that I read when I was a kid, and at the time I loved that book and I gave it a 4 or 5 stars, and now I'm looking back at this book and I'm like, comparatively to all the other books I read, like, I hardly remember that book. Like, I don't remember it being that exciting. I really think I was just like excited about it at the time, and now I realize that it really didn't deserve that star. Do I go back and change that rating to something lower, especially without rereading it? And I think rereading a book brings up a whole nother idea of like, where does that fall in the rating system? If I'm rereading a book, does that give me a right to rate it completely on this most recent reading, or should I be averaging what I thought this time with what I thought when I originally read it? So this video is basically just to bring up some questions that I always have when I'm choosing a rating for a book, and to start a discussion with you guys, so as a community we can kind of address the issues with the overall 5-star rating and maybe create a more cohesive understanding of what each number means to each person. So I would love to hear your thoughts. If you guys want to make a response video to this, that would be so cool. Please comment. Please let me know if you have the same problems, if you guys have different problems, if you think that I'm just crazy and that there is no problem with the 5-star ratings. I want to know your opinions, so please let me know. And thank you guys so much for watching. This, again, is just sort of a random thoughts video, so the fact that you stuck through it is great. Bye, guys.